Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're opening the file on what just might be the absolute most elaborate 600-year-old cold case in academic history. It's known as the Fontana-Kircher-Voynich deception. Now, you've probably heard of the Voynich manuscript, right? It's been touted forever as the world's most mysterious, unreadable book. But listen, today we are not looking for magic, and we're definitely not talking about aliens. Instead, we're stepping right into the shoes of a forensic investigator. We're going to examine a gripping hypothesis filled with stolen credit, hidden motives, and actual hard forensic evidence.
There's a saying that goes, "We only believe what we see," but often history is an optical illusion. And when we try to break new ground and really look at the past, relying strictly on established academia can be, well, a bit difficult. It's like trying to piece together a massive puzzle where the person who gave you the pieces might be lying to you. Historical documents are notoriously tricky to evaluate. Because think about it, just because a letter or some correspondence exists, does that actually mean the author was telling the truth? Not at all. The people back then were driven by the exact same human desires for power and money that we see today. So what we've casually accepted as historical fact might literally just be an optical illusion crafted for someone's personal gain.
And that idea perfectly sets the philosophical foundation of our investigation today. We are going to impartially examine the 2026 Lüth hypothesis. This thesis asks us to look at renowned historical figures not as flawless, purely objective saints of science, but as real, flawed human beings pursuing their own interests. Did they twist history in their favor early on? Absolutely. It's highly likely. So we're going to treat the historical record strictly as a set of forensic clues, rather than just blindly accepting the established academic narrative. Okay, let's dive straight into this vast timeline so we can meet our key suspects and our victims. We're going to track how a totally simple, pragmatic invention way back in 1430 somehow spiraled into a centuries-long illusion, a cover-up that actually touches Leonardo da Vinci, a 17th century Jesuit scholar, and leads right up to a massive modern academic blockade in 2026. Let's open our first case file. We're traveling all the way back to the year 1430 to examine the true, actual origin of this crime scene, long before this manuscript was ever branded as some kind of magical curiosity.
Forensic analysis completely redefines this famous manuscript. Officially designated as MS-408, we can completely toss out the idea of a magical text. The Lüth hypothesis categorizes this book strictly as a pragmatic, visual military communication tool. Basically, it's a 24-sector circular cipher built entirely on 15-degree angles. The whole point was that it allowed a totally illiterate messenger to carry a coded string of letters derived purely from geometry straight to a commander on the battlefield. No actual spoken language required whatsoever. It's pure, brilliant tactical engineering.
So, who made it? Well, when investigators run a Europe-wide search from the early 15th century, looking for someone with this highly specific, advanced skill set, the result is exactly 0 other individuals. Only one guy fits the bill, Johannes Fontana de Venetia. He was a medical doctor, a mechanical engineer, a cryptographer, and a master illuminator. He is the one and only individual who possessed the combined expertise necessary to create this incredibly specific 24-sector system. He is our sole capable creator.
And when you compare MS-408 to Fontana's known work, like his book called The Secretum, a really clear pattern emerges. The Voynich manuscript is super famous for its bizarre, completely unidentifiable plants and these really strange bathhouse drawings. But get this, Fontana's known standard operating procedure was to explicitly use drawn, fictional herbs as memory aids. For example, he'd draw eyes on a plant to indicate that it was toxic. Furthermore, he actively disguised his actual siege engine designs as innocent-looking bathhouses. So those supposedly mystical alien illustrations, they were literally just standard military obfuscation tactics.
So you're probably wondering, why didn't it become a famous military tool back then? Well, as always, follow the money. In 1438, Fontana pitches this brilliant cipher to the Venetian Council of Ten. But the war against Milan was ending. They didn't need it anymore, so the budget was explicitly denied. This manuscript, which was just a solitary prototype, was quietly archived away in the Venice arsenal. The world's greatest unsolved mystery actually started simply because a government refused to fund a defense contractor's pitch.
And that brings us to our next major historical figure, Leonardo da Vinci. By 1490, da Vinci actually had access to the Sforza Library in Milan, which contained copies of Fontana's work. But what's fascinating is that da Vinci interacted with this 24-sector code in a completely different, totally unexpected way.
When modern researchers applied Fontana's 15-degree 24-sector cipher disk to Da Vinci's 1495 masterpiece, The Last Supper, they uncovered a hidden sequence, XEIXF. Now, if you run that through Fontana's system, it translates to Christus Enuntio Judas Christus Falsus. Translated, that means Christ announces Judas, Christ says, betrayal is false.
You really have to appreciate the sheer mathematical precision going on here. If you place the 0 point exactly at the painting's vanishing point, which is Christ's right temple, and you divide the entire scene into 15-degree sectors, the apostles' heads, their hands, and key items like Judas's pouch align perfectly with these military grid lines. To put that into perspective, the probability of 12 apostles aligning to this exact 15-degree military grid by mere chance is less than 0.0001. There is no way that's an accident.
But we have to look at the difference in intent here. Fontana designed a weapon of war. Da Vinci, on the other hand, was a well-known pacifist. He took Fontana's brilliant geometry, entirely stripped it of its military communication function, and repurposed it purely as a hidden artistic composition principle. We know for a fact he copied Fontana's engineering designs in his notebooks, but he used this specific cipher strictly for his art.
Da Vinci isn't our thief, though. Oh no. The trail of evidence leads us forward to 17th century Rome, straight to the mastermind of our alleged historical cover-up, the incredibly famous Jesuit scholar, Athanasius Kircher.
Let's break down the timeline of this massive intellectual theft. Sometime between 1640 and 1660, a scholar over in Prague named Marzi sends the detached cipher key pages of the manuscript directly to Kircher in Rome. Kircher instantly realizes what he has. So what does he do? He allegedly scrapes Fontana's name right off the main book, turns around and publishes this brilliant cipher system as his own invention in his 1665 book Mundus Subterraneus, and then quietly buries the now useless keyless main manuscript deep in the Jesuit archives.
Now, you might be asking, okay, but where's the proof? Well, the forensic evidence is completely damning. Carbon-14 dating places the parchment exactly in Fontana's era. And when scientists put the book under UV light, they found physical proof of scraped iron gall ink on folio 1R. Someone literally took a knife to the page to erase the original author's identity. Furthermore, exactly 8 pages are physically missing from the binding, right where a military index and legend would logically sit. When we compare the official historical story to the cold, hard forensic reality, the human element becomes so obvious. Kircher's official story for his sudden burst of genius in 1665 was basically, oh, it was divine inspiration. But the forensic motive? It's clear as day. As a Jesuit, Kircher desperately sought a monopoly on intelligence for the Pope, not to mention immense personal prestige. Because let's be honest, you don't get eternal glory if you admit your genius breakthrough is actually just a copied, 200-year-old rejected Venetian military pitch.
So, given that the physical evidence for Fontana's authorship and Kircher's theft is this overwhelmingly strong, we have to ask the obvious question. Why hasn't modern academia just closed this case file? Why on earth is it still being taught as an unsolvable mystery?
Well, a cynical investigator has to follow the money once again. When a book buyer named Wilfrid Voynich rediscovered this manuscript in 1912, he heavily marketed it as a magical, unsolvable manuscript purely to drive up its asking price. Today, it sits comfortably at Yale. There is a massive 100-year academic paradigm, complete with lucrative documentaries, best-selling books, and tenured university positions that thrives financially and reputationally only if the book remains a mystery. If you solve it as a boring, rejected defense contract, you instantly kill a highly profitable industry.
But listen, we don't just want you to take this hypothesis at face value. Real, objective science requires falsification. And the great news is, we have the exact experiments needed to prove or disprove this theory objectively, completely bypassing that academic blockade.
Think of these 3 points as your jury instructions. If academia truly wants the truth, they just need to run these tests. First, do a digital overlap analysis of Da Vinci's engineering sketches against Fontana's. We actually already know some are literal one-to-one copies. Second, digitize the unlisted Jesuit archives in Rome to finally find those missing key pages that Kircher hid away. And third, run a Zipf's law linguistic analysis. If you get a sigma score greater than 3, it mathematically proves the manuscript's text is a highly redundant code and not a natural human language. The truth absolutely can be verified.
So, we bring it all back to you. We've looked at the physical tampering, the stunning geometric alignments hidden in Renaissance art, and that undeniable human greed for power, money, and legacy. So we leave it to you to decide. Has this historical optical illusion finally been shattered, or will the mystery industry manage to keep this case file open forever? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning what you see.